name is Seth LoRusso, and these are my lovely audience. You have to turn the camera around. Thank you so much for everybody from work coming to listen to this speech. All right, so you may not have a LGBTQ plus youth in your life, but my daughter and her friends are. So I've worked very hard during her childhood to be a positive support for her and her friends. Now, you may not have a queer youth in your life, but if you did not know, queer youth are the group with the largest suicide rate in the United States. I never imagined how tragic life of a queer youth could be without the impact of a caring and understanding adult. But the studies completed by the Trevor Project strongly explain that queer youth with positive identity-related support and acceptance from at least one caring adult may protect the youth and reduce the risk of suicide. Data from Trevor Project's 2019 survey explained that queer youth who had positive acceptance and understanding from an adult concerning the sexual orientation and gender identity directly lowered the rate of suicide attempts and other serious mental health concerns. More specifically, this research from the Trevor Project documented that queer young people who felt that their sexuality orientation was accepted by at least one adult, and transgender and non-binary young people who felt that their gender identity was accepted by at least one adult had lower odds of reporting suicide or attempting in the past year, compared to those who did not have an adult or did not feel accepted. Similar findings have been found longitudinal studies suggesting possible causal effects between perceived support and suicide attempts among young queer people. Unfortunately, not all LGBTQ plus youth have access to a supportive adult in their lives, and as the research states, without that support and understanding and caring adult, it can make the difference between life and death. So how can you support LGBTQ plus youth? Having access to affirming spaces and activities, especially at school, is important to queer youth. My daughter and her friends created a creative writing club at her school, and no matter how you identified, you were welcome and supported in that group. You can support local programs in your community that are welcoming and exclusive to queer youth. In my community, we had Girl Scouts that was safe and a welcoming space for those youth in our community, especially for my daughter and her peers. Positive gender affirming medical care is important when supporting queer youth. Many youth cannot access mental health due to cost, transportation, or lack of providers that understand queer issues. And as an adult, you can use your time to help them connect resources available. You can call and help them do a doctor's appointment. You can help them with an Uber. And you can spend your time with them at a doctor's office, or even march in a parade or stand in a protest. Transgender and non-binary youth face significant higher risks than their cisgender peers, often intensified by lack of access to gender-affirming care, such as hormone therapy, which is associated with positive mental health outcomes, including the reduced risk of suicide. A 2021 peer-reviewed study by the Trevor Project researchers published in the Journal of Adolescent Health found that gender-affirming hormone therapy is significantly related to lower rates of depression, suicide thoughts, and suicide attempts among transgender and non-binary young adults. You can support queer youth by using their preferred pronouns. Transgender and non-binary youth who report having pronouns respectfully used by most people in their lives attempted suicide at half the rate compared to those who did not have pronouns respected. A 2022 peer-reviewed study by the Trevor Project researchers published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health found that transgender and non-binary youth who had changed their legal documents reported significantly lower rates of attempted suicide in the past year compared to those who had not. And what I took from this, it won't kill me to use their preferred pronouns, but it could kill them if I don't. Queer youth are also higher risk for bullying, physical abuse, and sexual violence, which is also correlates to higher suicide attempts. The impact of affirming spaces and activities, especially at school for queer youth, is extremely important because positive mental health is a big thing. Queer youth who report the presence of trusted adults in their school have higher levels of self-esteem, and access to supportive peers is protective against anxiety and depression, including among those who lack support from their family. And as I started with this, the best support for queer youth starts at home. It's an eye-opening piece of information that queer youth without one accepting adult in their life significantly increases the chances of them attempting suicide. So all it takes is one adult that cares and understands to change their lives. In closing, each and every queer youth is important. When youth has a positive medical care community where there are positive policies and practices that support their needs, affirming spaces like schools and activities where they can socialize and escape to, and most importantly, at least one accepting adult in their life, queer youth thrive. Now that you have this information, you can help queer youth in your life or in your community thrive. You can also find support and additional information from the Trevor Project. Be the one to protect LGBTQ+ youth.
Help was so bad was because I felt very alone.
I really needed someone to understand me, listen, and be there.
I ended up basically falling into a lot of suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, self-harm. My biggest fear was that I was going to die alone. And so I got onto Trevor Chat.
When I reached out to the Trevor Project, I found people who were like me, who understood my story.
At the time I couldn't love myself, but now I can.
Knowing that there's a community out there of other people like you, normalizing the identities that exist, making sure that everyone knows that it's okay to exist in any way is so important.
Thank you.